Yo, thanks for subscribing to my animated series channel, but more importantly, thanks for your patience as I try and work to drop episode 1. It is a lot of work, a lot more work than I initially realized. And so today, I just want to briefly go over some of these struggles to end the content drought on this channel. So when I first got started making this animated series, I wanted to make 2D animation, but quickly learned that 2D animation is very expensive. On top of that, I do not have the talent to do it on my own. So I really only had one option, and that's to have a bunch of money, which I don't have. So 3D it was. I did the best I could at the time to make the main character for this animated series, but I just didn't have the skill to put all the detail needed into it. This is the first draft to the main character for the animated series. His name is Jinzo. So thankfully, having a couple dollars in my pocket, I began to look for 3D modelers that can make a better version of my main character than I could. But I only wanted to use cheap 3D modelers, and I mean cheap. And so I commissioned the guy to make this model. Now, look, art is art. I'm not here to bash anyone. But just by looking at it, you can see how many inconsistencies that are going on with this. This model just looks way too bootleg for me to try and use it and convince you, the viewer, that it's worth your time to watch. And I believe this model cost me about $80 or $90 or something around that range. And so I went, okay, fair enough. But this is only one 3D modeler. I'm pretty sure there's a 3D modeler out there that is cheap and can get the job done. I should be able to have my cake and eat it too. So at this point, I jump on Fiverr and I commission another person for this 3D model of Jinzo. And now I think this model is much better, but it's still a bit off. It just doesn't have that quality that I imagined in my head. But I guess it goes as they say, you get what you pay for, right? Beggars can't be choosers. However, when I was asking the modeler for changes, they basically were communicating to me that they couldn't make changes because of the software that they were using. And I was very confused. What do you mean you don't know how to make him look less like an e-boy? If you made the model, why can't you make the changes? And this is when I learned about a little software called Vroid. It turns out that Vroid is just a bunch of presets that you choose from and slightly modify these presets, and that just won't do. Because the most important thing when it comes to creating an animated series is that you need control, and I mean over everything. And this modeler using this software just couldn't provide that. I'm not trying to make E-Boy the animated series. Sorry. It's at this point that I realized that if I want some real quality models, I'm gonna have to up my budget. And so I reach out to another 3D modeler that costs more but has higher quality 3D model demos on display. And this is where I learned something very important. The 3D modeler shared with me that if I gave them a character sheet, it would help improve the accuracy of the character. Because before, I was only sending these 3D modelers a poster of the character that I had got made. And so here is where I stopped, took a step back, and went to go find help to make some concept art of these characters. I found a really talented artist to help me out with this, and within a couple months and a few $100s later, I was able to get these badass character sheets. I gave it to a 3D modeler, and this is what they returned back. Again, I'm not here to rag on anyone, art is art, but this is yet another model that I can't put in front of your face and expect you to take my animated series seriously. I mean, it's close, but it's always the small details that are the most important. The hair is pretty off, and this version of the character is kind of a chunky boy. The idea of this character is like super physically fit, you know, just basic anime tropes. At this point, I started to get pretty discouraged. It's been really hard trying to make this series come to life, but I ended up changing my tactic. Instead of looking for people that were interested in general 3D modeling work, I started to bug people that were hobbyists and focused more on like the anime style of things. And I eventually found a guy who's also really talented and ended up returning this 3D model of the character, which is much closer to anything that I've received up to this point. And at this point, things start to look up. However, another downside is that this 3D modeler took quite a while to finish a single model. At the rate that he was working, it would have took some 4 years to get all the characters needed for the first season. And so, that's when I decided, you know what, let's go balls to the wall with the main character, as far as the budget is concerned at least. And I bugged this really talented 3D modeler to make Jinzo. And I'm glad to say, this is the amazing model that he turned in. By far, this model looks the most like it's ready for an animated series. But then I realized a huge major issue. At this point, I had about 3 really good 3D model assets for the show and started to put them together in a scene, and this is where I realized they just are not cohesive together. You can see that one modeler has a different style than the next modeler, so forth from the next, which means that on top of what I've already paid, I'm gonna have to pay even more to go through a bunch of revisions iterations until we get it right, and it just all became such a big headache, not to mention so expensive, that I had to take several steps back and realize what I should have known all along. So before I conclude this video, I'm gonna let you know that all this work that I presented to you in this video, I can't really use any of it. It's just not cohesive enough, and cohesion is probably the most important thing when it comes to trying to win over your time. So back to the very beginning. This is the 3D model that I started out with. This is the rough draft of the main character Jinzo, and here is the art style that I'm pretty sure we're probably gonna move forward with. Here it comes. Yeah, it's only slight improvements from the rough draft, which only took me a couple days to do myself. Unfortunately, animation is just expensive. There's just no way around it. So I either figure out how to get $500,000 to hire the right people and bring this to life, or I just gotta unbutton my shirt, put my gloves on, and get a little dirty. Yeah, it's a bit slow of a process, but I refuse to deliver anything but the greatest animated series I can muster, because these stories and characters that I've been working on for the past 2 years definitely deserve it. Thanks for your patience. I'll see you again soon.